What's up, everybody, to another spoiler review. I am covering. I'm not a huge slasher guy. Matter of fact, like for all my younger years, I've been uh, I avoided as much as I can of horror movies in general, but more specifically slasher or just gore porn kind of movies. But the one slasher film that I can actually tolerate is the Scream franchise. And mostly because I love the commentary on like movies, or at least uh, horror movies as a genre, which later on became like commentary on sequels and trilogies and franchises and sagas and reboots and sequels and re-sequels and that kind of thing. But the first one has always been a banger, and the sequels for the most part, they're range from like, well, it depends on who you ask. Me personally, I think, yeah, they're okay. They weren't terrible. Although I do dig Scream 4, and the last one seemed, they took, you know, uh, turns on that one that I respect. So I couldn't really call it awful. There's certain choices or liberties that they pick. Maybe at some point when I go over the film, that I'll hash it out. I don't want to get there anywhere right here and now. If you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about certain risks and like, oh, they went there. I didn't think you actually killed that person, but good on you for actually like subverting expectations in that way. Aside from that, there was other choices that I did not agree with or don't, at the very least, think it was necessary. But anyway, yes, Green Man, uh, a mega hit of a horror film. As far as like I want to say it's like my favorite slasher movie. It's probably the only slasher movie I actually like. So it's really like I remember my cousins, my older cousins, kind of because I was so small at the time, forced me to watch the first Nightmare on Elm Street. Knowing for what I don't like freaking slashers and horror in general, but you know, they made me watch it. They wouldn't let me go, and it's like, ugh, God, it was like still kind of traumatizing. Uh, but this movie starring Neve Campbell, which had like a huge hit this year, because I made a mistake when I did a review a few minutes ago of The Craft, which you can check out on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/talkativecarl. Hit that notification bell and like button, especially on that The Craft movie. I forgot to bring that up then. But this movie came out in December, while the other one came out in May. I got those dates switched around. This one stars Neve Campbell as Sidney Prescott, David Arquette as Dewey Riley, Courtney Cox, Gail Weathers, Matthew Lillard, Stu Macher, Rose McGowan, Tatum Riley, Skeet Ulrich, who was also in The Craft as Billy Loomis, Jamie Kennedy, Randy Meeks. Uh, and you also got like a cameo appearance of Liev Schreiber as Cotton Weary. You got Drew Barrymore makes a had like a bit part in this as Casey Becker, and the renowned Roger L. Jackson as the voice of Ghostface. Wes Craven, the late Wes Craven, makes a surprise cameo as the school's janitor here in a Freddy Krueger sweater, which I thought was pretty, fun, and who is also directed the movie. Anyway, the opening to this movie is probably the most revered opening to films is like very high up there as far as like classic openings to a movie, where Casey is just home alone, and it adds to the creepy vibe because it's like it's not like some supernatural horror person like Freddy or Jason, but it's like Ghostface is right there with like Michael Myers. So far as like realistic possible killers, you don't know that live amongst you in the neighborhood that can just easily come to your house, sneak in your house somehow, and murder you. So you get that call, and it's synonymous to these films. And you get like this little recorder mechanism to alter your voice, and you get this stranger quizzing. The thing is, it was like a wrong number, but calling Casey to quiz her on horror films. Things turn sour quickly when oh my god, I just love the way like Ghostface threatens people because it's so like out there. You'll never kudos to the writers because you never will think of weaving these kind of words into a sentence together. Like something like you hang up that phone again, I'll cut you like a fish. That kind of thing is like, oh god, it's like, oh, I like it, but I like it so much. Uh, then the quizzes turn deadly as like she sees her boyfriend tied up out in her patio, bound and gagged, saying like, if you don't get this question right, I will cut him open. She gets it wrong, even though technically she was right, but he going off, it's kind of like the Riddler, where it's like, you technically got the right answer, but it isn't like the right answer because of this little caveat kind of situation. So he kills him. She tries to book it out, and of course, cheesy '90s horror films where she goes wrong direction kind of situation instead of like a more likely scenario where it's a little more safer of a route to take. She just falls, gives the killer a chance to catch up with her. He kills her, and it was right before her parents finally get home, and they find her. And this is like, and because this is where, even though I don't like slashers, I respect the classic ones because unlike I say like mid to late 2000s, where we got into the whole gore porn of the horror part of a horror film, which became not. I think I put the fault on the Saw movies because they're the ones that personally I think they're the ones that are responsible for pushing that narrative so hard because uh, that's what. Because a lot of people, if you've gone to or speak with people who are horror enthusiasts, you would think there's always this like a stereotype where it's like, oh, people are so into horror films, they must be freaks and weirdos, but they're probably like the nicest people you ever meet. And if you speak with them, they will probably would more than likely agree that the horror part isn't about the goriness of it. It's the suspense and the thrills and that leads up to said thing that sometimes comes out of nowhere or is unique or something like that. It's just not for gore's sake. So when they go out on that patio and you see their daughter strung up by a tree with her innards spilling out and like the camera just whirls right in towards the body and cut to the Scream logo. That is because like all that stuff, like this. That's why I say it's like one of the most revered openings to a film. Because right when she answers the phone, up to the moment of the camera panning towards the Scream logo, beat for beat is set up so perfectly that the thrills, the suspense builds. The building of the suspense is what makes a good horror movie a good horror movie. Uh, so uh, now, like, the media is swarming the school in Willsboro, where you meet Sidney Prescott and a group of friends, and come to find out that the one of the most popular girls in school and her boyfriend got butchered uh, late last night. So they started questioning all the students. And this is where I did not even pay attention, because we watching this just for this review. I did not hear this line of dialogue before. Maybe I did, it just went over my head. But, Matthew Lillard, who, by the way, is phenomenal in this role. I think Matthew Lillard is the most underrated actor of, at least one of the most underrated actors of our time, because not only he plays Shaggy incredibly well, I think neck and neck with the original voice actor for Shaggy, but like as far as live action, he's spot on Shaggy. But in this role as Stu, he plays wacky and like intimidating, and like he hits like so many ranges. Sometimes in one scene, it's freaking incredible. Uh, and it's like, I don't know if that was improvised, where it's like one scene where he's like really like wigging out, and it's like his spit like just comes out of his mouth, and he's just let it continue, and it's like yeah. Sometimes I learned this in acting class. Sometimes while you saying certain lines of dialogue, and like get into like the feel of it, and you get this first instinct of going with a certain move or body language or whatever like that, go for it. Because 9 times out of 10, you don't know, that might add to something that the director would not expect, that made it, even better. I have a case in point, you know, in that same final scene, but we'll get to that. So the line that was brought up that I did not really pay attention to is that when they the way the police are interviewing the guys compared to the girls, they asking all the guys, "Have you ever went hunting?" Because, as Stu mentioned, because only they think like this got to be a guy involved, because you know girls don't hunt typically, uh, and the way the Bible is cut up, is only takes like a certain amount of strength to do it, which more often than not a woman would not have. So I thought that was like a purple detail thing, put input in that scene. So now you got all, this group of friends sitting there like questioning, and you got like Jamie Kennedy playing Randy, who is our audience, who is like a aficionado when it comes to like movies, especially horror films, and can be able to like point out certain like cliches and gimmicks that you see constantly in movies prior to Scream, that was replayed over and over, to the point where it's like it's standard almost. Uh, so later that night, Sydney gets like a phone call. It's the Ghostface, I'm about to say Ghostface killer, not the rapper, but the slasher, and breaks in, and somehow every movie this guy keeps breaking in. In every movie, he somehow find a way to clone phones, or like avoid having it traces back directly to the phone he's using or something like that. And it's like every movie is always that. It's like or at least he found new ways to not have it traced. I guess you can find ways to not have your phone traced back to you with the phone records and what have you, but it's like this should be the past few Scream films, at least the last three. You should not be able to get away with half the stuff that Ghostface gets away with when it comes to the phone, and like getting in somebody's house. I mean, of course, I guess you can figure out a way to pick a lock or whatever, but it just seems like it should be a whole lot difficult, way past like 2010. At least some point by 2010, moving up to now, it should be extremely difficult to get inside somebody's house, especially with like alarm systems, which I guess could be hacked. But then you got like certain houses with like you have a phone app where you can view outside your peephole or whatever to see anybody drop off packages. You should be able to like see these kind of things and not get caught by surprise. And it's like Kevin McAllister from Home Alone can easily like one of Ghostface with just rudimentary traps. So this is kind of like weird. Anyway, so and she's trying to make her escape, like because she went on a computer and dialed 911 directly through her computer, and her boyfriend Billy comes crawling through the window like he somehow always does, and she's freaking out and he's trying to calm her down. Then a phone drops out of his pocket and some gloves, and then she's like very started to suspect him. She runs to the cops. They arrest him. Now they're questioning him until later on that night. The Ghostface killer calls her and taunts her. You also get introduction with Gail Weathers, who's at this point in time complete ass, but an asshole with a heart of gold kind of situation. But you see her in later sequels be a slightly better person. But so now everybody's like looking at Billy funny, even though like he's apparently been the charges kind of been dropped because he was in holding when that call was made. So now all the focus is on Sydney's father, who right now can't be found because he's supposed to be going on some kind of trip, but nobody's heard from him in like days. And the anniversary of Sydney's mom's murder is coming up, and Sydney's mom had like a reputation of sleeping around, and of course I guess that would be like a pariah back then. Now you got the Kardashians. That's more celebrated more often. Well, I won't say sleeping around, but just now it's kind of like she's living. It's not really a pariah now for women to have flings. I think it would be more so breaking up a possible marriage or causing an affair, and that would be a little bit more looked down upon. But not like a big old social pariah where it's like making like Channel 7 news kind of situation every night. And her death was blamed on Cotton Weary, who you see make a more prominent role in the sequel. And you see like these cool moments where like the killer's coming out of freaking nowhere. I played Dead by Daylight, with some friends, and I always choose Ghostface. He's my favorite slasher character, and he's slightly difficult to use, but like it's all worth it because I just really like that character. He's a very unique, creative character. There's no supernaturalness about him, and just like with Mike Myers as well, it's like he just is like a possible real thing, and you just seemingly cannot get rid of this guy. Oh well, Ghostface is slightly different because even though you shoot him, he just gets back up because he usually wears some kind of bulletproof vest. You'll think by movie 3 you'll catch on to that and shoot him directly in the freaking head. And it's always a different person every movie, so you can't really pin down who could be a possible psycho wearing this Ghostface mask. So the killer just pops out of the girl's bathroom after some shit kids, talking shit about, knowing full well that Sydney's probably in there, and like talking crap about her mom, and then Ghostface chases her out of the bathroom, which I don't know why she's not screaming like, "Help! The Ghostface killer's in the women's bathroom!" Woo, woo. And so people can like get security and go investigate because obviously he's not there anymore. But I don't know how he gets out of places without noticing because there was at least a few people in the hallway when she ran out. So it's like our eyes will have been on that bathroom, and I doubt he would be able to climb out a window without anybody noticing if the window was big enough. But he got in there somewhere, so I don't know. Then you got Henry Winkler of the Fonz of all people playing a school principal, and every time I watch this film, that school principal, does anybody check his mental state? Because he seems like up for cutting up kids. But he got this big ass pair of scissors. Yeah, because some idiot kids running around in a ghost face mask, just goofing off and whatnot, frightening the other students. So it was tasteless when they doing something like that when they got like you know uh, fellow classmates who's been brutally murdered. I don't I don't know. I want to say it's like white school kids that do this, but you know I don't remember if there was some kind of tragedy going on in real life. I don't remember in any school that I've been in, whether middle school or high school, nobody's running around like after like uh well, I don't know, like a school shooting or something. Nobody dressed up like one of those school shooters and run down the hallways wearing the get up that looked like the a Columbine shooter or anything like that. Because no one would ever think to do something that dumb. We all done dumb stuff, but we have empathy. We wouldn't sit in there like dressed up as a person who mass murdered a lot of people. Uh, so he's in there like shoving, scissors in their doggone face, and it's like, I would have called my parents immediately on this guy, but he get his quick comeuppance because like later on the killer comes out the closet and guts this guy, and you later on hear like on a news report that he was hanging from a flagpole by the school. So that was like, I don't know how you get a body up there like that, but whatever. But prior to that, the principal announced about closing down the school until further notice when this killer is caught. So Stu decided to hold like a big party because movies like this always gotta have a party because they even referencing this in like later sequels to the franchise that what we always gotta do, we gotta have like a massive party, and that's where they guarantee the killer to show up. So uh, they'll go to uh, to Stu's house. Or you gotta also sing with Randy going over the rules of surviving a horror film. No sex, no drinking, no drugs. Never say like I'll be back because you won't be back. Uh, 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 so it's just funny. It's probably like my favorite Jimmy Kennedy performance to date. Yeah, he been in other stuff. He was like a thing in the early 2000s, but it kind of really petered out. I mean, he's still doing comedy, but it's like so far as like big movie roles, it's like at best he's like supporting role in certain things here and there that you just surprise he's there, but by and large he kind of stay off the kind of scene like that. Uh, then Billy shows up. Him and Sydney finally has sex. He's not a virgin anymore, which is another rule. Like virgins don't get killed in horror films. They normally are the survivors, which horror films down the line eventually stop doing those kind of cliches, which is kind of good, mixing it up a bit. But you never know. Like it always comes full circle, so they might swing back around and make a diversion, like the sole survivor. Uh, uh, so Sidney's friend gets killed by a garage door. Bye bye Rose McGowan. Uh, 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 Gail Weathers' cameraman gets his throat slashed. Uh, Dewey gets stabbed in the back, but he's survived. Gail, trying to escape the killer, drives off in her cameraman's van and crashes in a ditch. But then, seemingly, the killer comes in after they finish having sex, comes in, seemingly stabs and kills Billy, and then as she's trying to make her escape, she bumps into Randy and Stu, who Stu thinks like, oh, like, Randy's the killer, he's the killer, and like, they like, Sydney doesn't believe any one of them. Until she sees Billy comes down, seemingly survive. She hands him the gun she found, and then he ends up wounding Randy. And then she comes to realize Billy and Stu were the same killer. Which is, I always thought was such a good idea, because it explains why the killer seemed to be always two places at once, and how like Billy got off on a technicality because Stu was always there as running interference, so that way, because it's kind of like Strangers on a Train, where it's like you kind of swap murders, so that way you have like an alibi kind of situation. Which I should one day do like I'm pretty sure maybe it's on Turner Classic on HBO Max. I might have to check that, because I watched a little side tangent here. If you ever do yourselves a favor and check out the Billy Crystal movie, or my favorite Billy Crystal anything, Throw Mama from the Train, which they took the premise of that film off a classic Hitchcock movie, of which they reference, uh, 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 where like two strangers on this train, have grievances with a person, and they decided to swap murders just to avoid getting caught by the cops. And a movie that I also reviewed, one of my earliest reviews up on the channel, which you can check out on youtube.com/talkativecarl, Horrible Bosses, which also used that same premise of swapping murders. So I always loved that concept. So this is I obviously wouldn't play that well by today's standards, unless you do it like Dexter Morgan, unless it's very methodical. Yeah, you can probably get away with that, but it's always some, because you got these people who are completely out of their freaking minds. So of course they probably gonna leave some kind of slip up. And so Stu's, and they break it down to Sydney about their motivation behind all this. Turns out Sydney's mom banged Billy's father, caused his mother to run away and abandon Billy as a little kid. So he kind of grew up resenting Sydney. Don't know how he swung hooking up with her in the first place, because that seemed like a arduous task. Because in order to make this entire scheme work, or because if you were dead set on killing her, let's say, because they was the ones responsible for killing her mother a year ago, you have to plan out like actually being with this girl who you don't know if she was going to be into you or not, like that, whether you're the popular kid there or not, at least one of them. There's no way it was a guarantee that she would be like, infatuated with you enough to be your girlfriend, because that is probably like a key domino that needs to make the whole entire thing work. There's a few leaps and logic, and it's like you gotta suspend your disbelief a bit. But it's like, I'm just saying, like, okay, this is precedent on making sure she hooks up with you, and not physically, but be your girlfriend. Because now it's like, if she wasn't your girlfriend, you can probably have to take a few extra steps in order to get your this whole entire scheme working. But you get Billy's motivation. He's holding like this long grudge. Uh, Stu is just like, he's just gonna blame it on movies because he's just super into this. So they captured Sydney's father, bound to gag him, planning on pinning the murders on him, just like they did with Cotton Weary. On same thing about the mother, and then they come to notice the gun that Stu set down that they took off of Sydney is missing, and it turns out Gail has it, and this gives Sydney an opportunity to disappear while the other two overpower and knock out Gail. And now this tables are turned, because I love this moment where Sydney now using the whole Ghostface thing against them. Because earlier they was like, okay, we're gonna be the two survivors of this killer's mass murder, and they started like giving each other shallow wounds, but Billy kind of do it slightly too much with Stu, like, Gail Wilson here. And it's like, it's like you would not forget that. It's like Matthew Lillard is so good, and he is such a great actor. So he's starting to bleed out a little bit, so he definitely gets to the doctor right away because the adrenaline, once it drops, he's dropping. And so she's calling on the phone using the recorder thing, taunting them, and now he's hiding. And it's like another thing, because this is where the improvisation comes into play, because Billy's on the phone talking and everything like that, and while Sydney's taunting him, saying like, I already called the cops, they're on their way, you fucked. So this pissed off Billy, and he just smacks Stu on the head with the with the phone. And he actually did that. The actor actually did that. Like I said, you just go with it sometimes. And he's and Bill and Stu is like, you hit me with the phone, you dick. It's like, it is so good. That, because like a lot of people say about like horror movies are funny sometimes, and I don't really see it in general whenever I see certain slashers or whatever. But this in particular is definitely funny as hell, because it's like, physical comedy. It's kind of like with John Wick hitting that horse on the ass to call him the buck and smack another assassin in the face. It's just like unexpected. And he like Stu's like, did you really call the cops? I sure did, Stu. My mom and dad is gonna be so mad at me. It's like, he's great in this. He is great in this. This entire third act is phenomenal. Oh my god, it's like everybody like knew the assignment, and it's great. So right when Stu was about to finally suspect where Sydney is, she come bursting out. Don't know why she need to wear the mask. It's not like she's adds to anything, but I guess she comes out with this umbrella and hits Billy in the shoulder or left pectoral area with his umbrella, and causing physical pain. I want to bring this up because I slightly brought it up earlier in the video, but that spot, because like I said, like sometimes directors like to go with certain things that's like adds to something that wasn't previously planned. Skeet Ulrich actually from childhood, he actually had like some kind of like an accident in his childhood. Forgot what it was specifically, but he always had this kind of like a bruise or like injury here. So unfortunately, like Neve Campbell actually pressed that umbrella directly on that spot that's, I guess, kind of tender, or is always like old injury kind of situation that bothers him. And so that was actually when you see him reeling in pain in that scene, he is actually in pain. And that is all. It's kind of like with Scarlet Witch in Doctor Strange 2 when the kids threw the toy and it actually hit her, the actress, in the head, and she just went with the anger and like she snapped at those kids, and they had to cut the scene right afterwards just to check on to see if the kids was okay, and she wasn't, they wasn't too freaked out. But sometimes we get moments like this. I guess directors just flow with it because it adds to the scene and it makes you feel the actor's energy. I thought it was like a cool little factoid for you guys. So they go after Sydney. Stu ends up falling, in the living room, and Sydney took the opportunity and pushed the TV set right on top of his head, killing him. And then she's gonna take down Billy, Gale, and then Randy eventually wakes up. Randy points out like this is the part of the movie where the killer, doesn't proves that he isn't killed, that kind of thing. Billy rises like, yeah, and then they just shoot him down cold dead. The movie ends with like Dewey surviving as well, and Gale making a report on the evening's events. This is like a classic for a reason. All the things I just mentioned, like everything, it's just like Wes Craven was like a master when in his craft. Even though I'm not like a huge like horror fan, I respect like his work as a director and everything he pulls together out of his actors, and when using certain camera shots, it's like, and like I said, the first act, or at least the beginning of the film before the logo shines, and right in this third act right there, probably like the best parts. I love stuff in the middle, but those are two acts. The parts of those acts really stood out for me, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. It is like brilliantly done. Like I said, every actor knew the assignment, and they done thoroughly well with it. I think I'll do the sequel next year for Halloween, because maybe the year following I'll probably try to get the chunk of the rest together, because I already got like at least like 6 or 7 movies already lined up for next year. I put in like a separate folder because so that way I don't be scrambling trying to figure what to use. It's probably gonna be like a little heavy in the vampire side, just a little minor spoiler for next Halloween. But if you love the first Scream movie or just a Scream franchise as a whole, let me know what's your favorite parts about that franchise. Who were your favorite actors, and what stuff that you did not like out of the first film that did not jive well with you. And yeah, I will see you guys in a few minutes. I got a comic book review for the theme of Halloween. I want to get that prepared. And then I got a little bit of surprise at the tail end of the night for you guys, so look forward to that. And I'll see you guys soon.